Welcome back to the channel, Warhammer Man back in the studio, and today we're taking a look at some of customizations. These are some Imperial Knights customized. They're the Armiger Warglaives, and they are basically, they have like a polearm weapon with the chainsword and the melta combined into one on a pole, and then they're magnetized, so they're sort of like Poseable. If you like this type of customization, painting videos, review, reaction, etc., make sure you like and subscribe. I am still experimenting with the new camera, so bear with me as sometimes it decides to randomly go out of focus or just never quite wants to focus in exactly right. Hopefully, if I change up the lighting setup and kind of mess with it a little bit, we can kind of get it dialed in. But in the meantime, some things are a little sketchy at times, so again, bear with me. But I should have really showed off how I built these things as I was building them. Unfortunately, it just didn't really occur to me. I was a little too busy working as they are for a large Adeptus Custodes Armies commission. Don't mind the gold either. Just went ahead and primed that portion of them. The rest will be like primed in silver. Obviously, the bases aren't quite done either, but essentially you can just get the gist. And I wanted to, before I actually prime the models the rest of the way, show off how they're magnetized because it's a little more clear. So you can see, obviously, there's a little bit of like texture done on the bases. But let's kind of take a look at what's going on here. So the idea is for them to be posable. There is a magnet on the base that holds the pole arm when it's in place. But essentially, what we're going for is the ability to like monopose their arms in multiple different ways. But the real goal is to just have them be able to hold the pole arm so that it is sticking out like that, or to be able to hold it in the position you initially saw like that. So in order to do this, there is a bunch of magnets and then also like the joints that come standard on the model. But the main goal is to be able to clear the pole arm past their head so it doesn't like bump into them, and then also, be able to completely pose it as you need. So let's just kind of take them apart and we can kind of look at all the little components and how this was done exactly. So I'm just gonna leave on here. He is like glued to the actual like torso right here. But I'm gonna go ahead and just leave on all the portions that are like normally how you would build them regularly, and then we'll just kind of take a look at what's going on. So you can see here basically the majority of the knight is built how you would normally build them. I leave the top off just for like ease of painting and whatnot. And then like, you can mess with that accordingly. The arms are still jointed how they would normally be jointed. All this stuff is regular. And then basically here, instead of putting on the piece that you would normally put on there, we just add one magnet instead. I'll have the size of the magnet down in the description if you wanted to follow along and build your own. And then here as well, once again, we leave off that portion. Just put a magnet right there. Fits perfectly. Again, if you just use the right size magnet. So that's how we just, pretty standard on the actual base. And then I cut off like the there's like two little hoses or one little hose on each one right there. I cut that off as well. So, but then that's how you end up with like your regular knight. And then obviously for the top here, because it is for the Adeptus Custodes, instead of the regular shoulder pads, I just add two of like the Custodes shields on there, and then I drilled out the hole right there and put a magnet in place for the top part, and then again drill out the hole here on the gun itself, and then replace that with a magnet. So therefore, the magnet allows you to put the gun on top and rotate it as you please, and then obviously both options are done like that. I use the Games Workshop little like hand drill that they sell to do it, and then I go through with like a larger bit and do it with like the actual drill, just because the Games Workshop drill only holds like little itty bitty drill bits. But then you can just sort of like clip this on to the top, and it will stay accordingly, and then you have essentially like, you know, the main assembly of the knight itself. And then for the arms, these are from an Eldar or Eldari or whatever it is, wraithlord, not the Wraith Knight, the smaller one, the wraithlord. So I cut off the joint right at the elbow on this one and then add a magnet into place. I don't know how well, there we go. You can kind of see that. And then that arm is for the one that already has an elbow built into it, obviously. That allows us to have basically this rotation. And then also I add a magnet on there so we can kind of put the gun on his wrist if you'd rather have it wrist mounted rather than the top there. But the goal here is now, if you look at what we have built, we have the actual pivot, which would be like equivalent to like the shoulder joint. So you can go basically any way you want right there. And then we have the built-in rotation as well. And then of course we have now this rotation also. So we have quite a bit of jointedness to this guy. He is basically posable in like infinite positions at this point in time. You know, as many as you would ever need. So, and then the next piece is another one of those Eldar Wraith Knight arms. And this one, we don't worry about holding the actual gun itself here. But most importantly, we cut off the right above the elbow on this one. Do it at a slight angle so you can see it's tilted just slightly backwards. And then again at the wrist, just kind of clean up. There's like a little nub that comes off. Clean that up and then just put a flat magnet there as well. So that basically gives us not quite a 90-degree angle. But again, once we attach that onto the piece that we already have there, now we have our typical joint, which is going to go, you know, like the shoulder joint itself. That all works the same as normal. And then we have also our degree of rotation here. And you'll see that because of how we've done that, we have a slight angle. So it's angled down in some cases and up in other cases. So, you know, essentially we can allow it to always be angled down, or if we shift the shoulder joint, it gives us like that little bit of up angle. But that is the overall general assembly here. And then for the weapon itself, once it's painted up, the shaft looks a little bit better. It looks kind of big when it's just white like that. But it is basically just plasticard, like little like cylinder that you can buy, sort of like a Bic pen. It's like almost exactly the same diameter as a Bic pen, but it matches up essentially perfectly with the shaft right here. So, and then in the back, we place another one of those magnets. It fits almost perfectly. I take a small piece of paper and wrap it around there just to get a perfect fit. When you push it in, it fits in there perfectly. And then when we actually take, you'll see the actual gun itself is cut off right here. So if you built it normally, this would be like your standard build of the gun. And then we just cut off the actual front, the tip of the gun right there. Gosh, this thing has no problem getting up close, but just has a horrendous time deciding when it's supposed to be zoomed in and what it's supposed to be looking at. I've tried like moving the backdrop. I'm just going to try messing with the lighting and hopefully it will be better. But again, I'm still experimenting with it. It is like a 4K HD camera, so it has no problem getting stuff close up. It just has a problem deciding when to. And I've tried using like the manual zoom and just haven't had a great luck with that either. So you can kind of see here, right there, it's basically clipped off, like, or cut off flat and then rotated. So essentially, if that was rotated 90 degrees, so it was like in line with the gun, it would be the regular spot. But instead, I cut that off and then I place the actual blade itself, which is this piece right here, flat up against that. And then I take the gun, rotate the actual bit 90 degrees, and then put that on top. You still have like the melta. It's just turned sideways, the front half of it is. And then the chain sword's underneath it. And then we add one magnet to the back. And for that, I just clean up the little area where it mounts a little bit. And then I put the actual magnet, you know, basically right there on that flush little spot. So it's touching the round part, which would normally mount onto the actual knight's arm. And then like the little melta piece there as well. And you can kind of see like how it's mounted. Like as flush as possible. So, but that's the actual weapon. And then once we take the weapon itself and put it right there, you'll see now we have the ability to rotate that weapon however we want. You know, and this is like completely like poseable. You can basically get like any angle or anything you would possibly want with that. And then that allows us to have the ability to basically sit flat like that, like he was holding it at guard. It allows us also to take the other arm here now and then pose that one however we want. So if it's just going to have like the gun, you could have it looking like, you know, he's pointing the gun at something. You could have it like down at the side, like relaxed. You could have it anywhere in between. But then when you rotate it accordingly, it allows it to basically attach to the magnet at the bottom. So there's just one little magnet. I don't think I mentioned that. One little magnet in the hand. This is a much smaller magnet added to the hand, the same one that's used on the gun. And again, I'll have it down in the notes. And then that will attach to the magnet that's in the bottom. So once we have all that in place, we can kind of rotate this how we want. And then he holds the weapon at the side, at the ready like that. Or like you see, obviously with the other one, he holds it upright. So that's basically like the two main poses that you're going for. And then obviously how to make them pose accordingly. And then you can see for the actual base itself, it's same deal. Just added one little magnet to the bottom right there, so that once this base is like fully based and all the little rubble's added and everything, he'll have like two little footprints where the actual knight is mounted. And then when you pose him the first way, it's fine, and the magnet's just there in the rubble. And then when you actually want him to stand on there with this in place, basically like stays on its own, just so it's like a little more sturdy, so it's not like flopping all over the place, like falling around. So but that is like the final goal right there. That's what we're going for. How I have converted the actual like weapons, the actual arms and everything. It does take a couple of bits. You need some Adeptus Custodes bits. There's some other bits obviously that I add in to make them look a little more like custode-ish, or whatever, other than the actual shoulder pads, or in this case shields I should say, instead of the knight shoulder pads. And then obviously he'll have like all his regular armor pieces, and then whatever else you want to change to make him look a little more custodes. I like to put one of the little like plumes right there, like little hair plumes, and then I use like some actual Adeptus Custodes shoulder pads for his foot pads, and then obviously the shields for the knight's shoulder pads. So but overall, when it's said and done, it turns out into a cool model. I'll show them off once they're finished, once they're painted and everything as well. But that's our goal. That's how we achieved it. It's fairly simple conversion. Costs a few bucks extra, but if you have the bits themselves, if you have the magnets from another project, or you buy them for this, you can use them for like countless things. They're the same magnets I pretty much use on everything. The same two standard sizes I use for like Adeptus Custodes jet bikes, all kinds of terrain, etc. So, but that's it. And then you can see the actual base itself. All I've done for this is I've used like some of the actual like terrain pieces from Games Workshop. This is like a single piece that I basically just didn't assemble, busted apart into a couple pieces, broke the sword off, and then I'll add a bunch of like little bits of rubble around it, and they'll match like the bases. And again, I'll show off all the bases when they're done, or maybe exactly how to make them from here. But that's like the starting point for the bases. And how simple it is to just magnetize those little bits. They're easy to transport, easy to swap out like your options. And then again, this is one little small terrain piece that basically will be, the main portion of our two main bases that we'll use. And then obviously for when the knights are just standing on their bases, once everything is said and done, they look like they're basically just like standing at the ready, or at the guard, or at the golden throne, protecting the emperor, or just prepared to jump into battle when need be. But so that's it. That's the Imperial Knight Armiger Warglaive conversions. I am Warhammer Man. This is Warhammer Man Studios. Hope you enjoyed the video. Sorry about little random camera issues along the way, but I trust that you got the point. There they are, and then we'll show them off once they're all finished up again. But again, I just wanted to kind of show, before they're all painted and everything, how the magnets go, how simple it is. And maybe I'll do a step-by-step process along the way at some point in time too, maybe when I make the next set. These are super popular though, so I definitely wanted to show them off. So there you have it, guys. Warhammer Man Studios. I'm Warhammer Man, and I'm out of here.